Under Committee Rule 9, we'll now question witnesses under the 5-minute rule. I'll recognize myself for the first 5 minutes. This question is for all three presidents. All of your schools have been hotbeds of Semitism at some point. Please tell me how many students at your schools have been suspended and how many have been expelled for anti-Semitic conduct since October 7th, 2023. President Raymond?
We don't publicize those numbers, and we use suspension and expelling as normal parts of our disciplinary process.
But you don't have numbers to give us, so we assume there have been none.
We do not talk about those numbers publicly.
Mr. Manuel?
Thank you for the question. Post-October 7th, there were 8 student groups investigated. 2 were suspended and put on probation. I believe there were 2 arrests after the encampment dissolution. One of them, I believe, was a student.
Thank you. President Armstrong?
As a result of events in 2024, we've had a total of 6 students disciplined, with the discipline ranging from 2-quarter suspension to deferred suspension to probation.
Thank you.
Welcome back to America First. Patriots, if you're tired of watching our institutions crumble while administrators make excuses, you've come to the right place. Make sure to hit that like button and subscribe, because we're going to keep exposing the truth that mainstream media won't touch. Today, we're breaking down this congressional hearing where university presidents were finally held accountable for the anti-Semitic chaos destroying our campuses.
President Manuel, you say you're committed to addressing anti-Semitism on campus. The group Students for Justice in Palestine, or SJP, is at the very center of your anti-Semitism problem. Students have been physically and verbally assaulted at multiple SJP protests. SJP was central to the May 2024 encampment, which caused $500,000 in damage. SJP has also circulated deeply anti-Semitic posts on Instagram, including a recent post accusing Israel of being just like the Nazis. President Emanuel, considering SJP's history of harassment and violence against Jewish students and its repeated refusal to abide by university policies, will you commit to finally permanently banning SJP from campus?
Thank you for the question. SJP has been suspended. They are on probation, and this post that I think you're referring to happened on Thursday. They were immediately suspended in all their operations from campus pending a new hearing. The cumulative effect of their work will be considered in the results or the outcomes of that next hearing. I'd be happy to report back to you on their findings.
I'd be glad to receive that. The cumulative effect seems like it's gone on, and I believe it'd be a point in time for banning. President Raymond, in March, the Haverford and Bryn Mawr group Faculty and Staff for Justice in Palestine, or FSJP, praised a Palestinian terrorist who led an attack in 1978 that killed 38 Israelis, including 13 children. FSJP claimed that the terrorist, and I quote, scarified herself for her country and fought for the freedom of many Palestinians. Does praising the murder of Jews violate any Haverford policies?
Of course it does.
Thank you.
There's no place for that,
Thank
ever,
you.
anywhere.
Another FSJP post applauded a member of the Popular Front for Liberation of Palestine, a U.S. designated terrorist group, because she trained for military operations. Did Haverford professors in this group face any consequences whatsoever?
I am not aware of that particular post, and anti-Semitism in any of its forms is not tolerated at Haverford College.
Well, with these faculty, it seems to have been. I'm going to ask you a few questions about statements we've heard on Haverford's campus since the October 7th terrorist attack against Israel. And again, I will not display all that's in this book, but this reminds us that the attack was not from Israel. The attack was from Hamas. Brutal, unprovoked attack as well. Is the phrase, "Long live the Intifada," protected speech on Haverford's campus? Yes or no?
That is an anti-Semitic form of speech.
Is the phrase "from Gaza to Lebanon, Israel will soon be gone" protected speech on Haverford's campus?
That is repugnant speech. I disavow it. It is anti-Semitic.
And happening. Is the phrase "resistance is not terrorism" protected speech on Haverford's campus?
Any anti-Semitic speech I will not defend. And at Haverford, we do protect speech.
Do these statements call for the genocide of Jews?
There is no tolerance for any such speech that would call for that.
Well, we hope we see that soon to come. Hamas is gaining support and comfort from schools that allow this to go on, and these go beyond just simply words. They include faculty and students blocking the freedom of education and life itself for Jewish students. I yield back, and now I recognize Representative Bonamici.
What we just witnessed is exactly what's wrong with higher education in America today. These university presidents sat there like deer in headlights when asked the most basic question: how many students have you actually disciplined for anti-Semitic conduct? President Raymond from Haverford wouldn't even give numbers. Think about that for a second. They track everything else down to the penny for tuition increases, but when it comes to protecting Jewish students from harassment and violence, suddenly they don't keep records. This is the same pattern we see across every institution captured by the radical left. They have detailed diversity reports. They know exactly how many students fit into every demographic category, but ask them about consequences for actual anti-Semitism, and they claim ignorance. That's not incompetence. That's intentional negligence. President Emanuel at least provided some numbers, but notice what he revealed. Students for Justice in Palestine, the group at the center of campus anti-Semitism, has been causing problems repeatedly. They were involved in an encampment that caused $500,000 in damage to campus property. $500,000, patriots. That's taxpayer money and tuition dollars being destroyed by radical activists. And these administrators treat it like a minor inconvenience. The fact that SJP is still allowed on campus after repeated violations shows you where these universities' priorities really lie. They'll suspend conservative speakers for made-up safety concerns, but a group that's been linked to harassment, violence, and property damage gets probation. This is a two-tiered justice system that's infected every level of our society. But here's what really exposes the rot at these institutions. When Representative asked President Raymond about faculty members praising Palestinian terrorists who murdered 38 Israelis, including 13 children, Raymond admitted it violates policy, but couldn't say if anyone faced consequences. Faculty members are literally celebrating child killers, and there's no accountability. These are the people educating the next generation of Americans. The questions about protected speech reveal how twisted these campuses have become. Phrases like "Israel will soon be gone" and "celebrating terrorism" are somehow treated as legitimate academic discourse. This isn't about free speech, patriots. This is about creating an environment so hostile to Jewish students that they can't participate in campus life. That's discrimination, plain and simple. What's particularly disturbing is how these presidents try to hide behind legal language and procedural excuses. They know exactly what's happening on their campuses. They know which groups are causing problems. They know which faculty members are promoting hatred. But they choose to do nothing because taking real action would upset their radical donor base and activist faculty. This hearing exposes a complete failure of diversity, equity, and inclusion programs. After decades of DI initiatives and millions in spending, Jewish students are less safe on campus than they've been in generations. These programs aren't about inclusion at all. They're about creating hierarchies of victimhood, where some groups get protection while others get targeted. The representative's point about Hamas gaining comfort from these institutions is absolutely crucial. When American universities allow terrorist groups to be praised and Jewish students to be harassed, it sends a message worldwide. Our enemies see this weakness and exploit it. Campus anti-Semitism isn't just a campus problem. It's a national security issue. Notice how none of these presidents could give a straight answer about whether calling for genocide violates their policies. They dance around with phrases like context dependent and "will investigate." This is the same playbook they use for every form of leftist extremism. Clear violations get endless investigations, while conservative viewpoints get immediate sanctions. The damage being done goes far beyond individual Jewish students, though their suffering matters most. These universities are teaching an entire generation that violence and intimidation are acceptable tools for political change. They're normalizing hatred and terrorism. Students learn that if you hold the right political views, you can break rules without consequences. This is why we need congressional oversight and accountability. These institutions receive billions in federal funding and tax breaks. Taxpayers shouldn't subsidize anti-Semitism and terrorist sympathizing. If universities want to operate as radical activist training camps, they can do it without public support. The solutions are clear but require political courage. Federal funding should be tied to protecting all students' civil rights, not just politically favored groups. University administrators who allow harassment and violence should face personal consequences, and groups that repeatedly violate policies should face permanent bans, not endless second chances. We also need transparency. Every disciplinary action, every investigation, every dollar spent on diversity programs should be public record. These institutions have hidden behind privacy claims for too long while systematically discriminating against Jewish students and other disfavored groups. The broader lesson here is about institutional capture. These universities didn't become anti-Semitic overnight. They were gradually taken over by radical ideologues who use positions of power to push their agenda. The same process is happening in corporations, government agencies, and cultural institutions across America. Fighting back requires understanding their tactics. They use emotional manipulation, procedural complexity, and bureaucratic delays to avoid accountability. They claim to support free speech while silencing opposition. They demand tolerance while promoting hatred. Recognizing these patterns is a first step to defeating them. This congressional hearing was a start, but it's not enough. Real change requires sustained pressure, financial consequences, and cultural pushback. Every parent considering where to send their children to college needs to see this testimony. Every donor needs to understand what their money is supporting. Every voter needs to know which politicians will fight for all students' rights. The fight for campus freedom is part of the larger battle for American values. When we allow hatred to flourish in our educational institutions, we're surrendering the future of our country. Jewish students today, conservative students tomorrow, and eventually anyone who doesn't conform to leftist orthodoxy. That's why this channel exists, patriots. We're not going to let them destroy our institutions without a fight. We're going to expose their hypocrisy, demand accountability, and fight for the principles that made America great. Make sure you're subscribed and hit that notification bell, because this battle is just getting started. What did you think about these university presidents' responses? Are you surprised by their refusal to take real action against anti-Semitism? Let me know in the comments below. And remember to share this video with everyone who needs to see what's really happening on our college campuses. Until next time, this is America First, and we're just getting started.